And now let's go like this. 1 second. And here we go. Good. Huh? Oh. And back. Good. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let's start the day off with charity. Giving tzedakah, the tzedakah will bring the geula, the redemption. The whole world will be different. It'll be changed. It'll be changed. And man will be changed a little bit so that we'll be able to accept this geula. But first of all, we have to give what we have now so that we can open up ourselves for a new world. Charity. Don't be stingy with your talents, with your abilities, with your money. Charity. Tzedakah, tatzil. Here we go. All right. Now we are beginning to learn. So we've learned this week about what exactly is the circumcision and how that removes all these veils and concealments that God purposely made when he created the world, so that he shouldn't be revealed here, so that we would be challenged to, yes, reveal him by means of Torah and the commandments and doing good deeds. 1 second, I head over here. Other people use the room. Okay, and doing good deeds. And that's what. Then we learned why Abraham's name was changed. Abraham's name was changed because of the fact that he had now this ability to reveal God's essence in the lower worlds. In the lower worlds, that's the letter Hey that was added to his name. And what was Sora? Sora, her name was also changed. It used to be Sorai. Why did God take away the Yud from her name and replace it? God didn't take anything away from Abraham. He just added a. This is because the Sarai is she couldn't be too powerful. She had to too spiritual. God had to remove the Yud, which indicates the first letter of God's name, and replace it with a Hey in order that it should be more, how do you say, fit, acceptable to this world. Oh, here it is. Acceptable and fit for this world. Excuse me. And then we learned about the circumcision, why Abraham delayed making this. That's what we learned yesterday. Why Abraham delayed making the circumcision until God commanded him. He did all the other commandments before God commanded. So the Rebbe says because Abraham was preparing, he wanted to open the door or to arouse God, arouse Hashem to bring the future redemption, which that it says that God will circumcise our hearts. We have to do the work on ourselves now to fix up our personality and to realize that we're just creations and act accordingly, according to what our Creator says. We have to work on ourselves in order to feel this. We have to do our own circumcision. But in the future, God is going to do it. And then it says that's even going to be higher than anything, and God will change our natures, he'll circumcise our hearts. That's what we learned yesterday. So basically what Chassidut is doing, it's essay after essay after essay, speech after speech after speech after speech, looking at the world from God's point of view and how important the world is to God and how we have to fix the world up so that everybody sees this. And of course, everybody's personalities are different, and everybody's talents are different, and everyone's situation is different. Everybody has to deal with different challenges in life, etc. Everybody. Some with challenges of being rich, some challenges of being poor. Everybody has to deal with different challenges. But basically, everybody is the same. They have the same number of bones, the same number of hearts, of lungs, brain, personalities have the same gamut, right? Love, fear, awe. So maybe the times have changed, and maybe there's electricity back then. There wasn't electricity, but man is still basically the same. It's just that within that category of man, there's an infinite number of changes, like snowflakes, for instance. All snowflakes, there's a definition of what a snowflake is. If you bring a car into a room, say this is a snowflake, they'll say it's not. But every snowflake is supposed to be different from every other one. So every human being is different, but they're in a realm of what is a human being, made in the image of God. So here we're explaining a little bit what God is. Okay, and Abraham was the first person to get the message, that God is not what we think, and that God is something infinitely more real and good and close to us than we can possibly imagine. On the other hand, he's infinitely far. Okay, here we go. So this is the first mimer in this week's Torah portion in Torah Or, this book Torah Or, which was written by the first Rebbe of Chabad. So here it is, Torah Or, thick book, nice book, beautiful Torah Or. And these are discourses on the first two books of the 5 books of Moses. Okay, Avraham, right? Let me make this bigger. I can make this bigger. Why not use this? Make it bigger. Oh. Avram. Remember, Abraham got his name changed. His name used to be Avram. That was his name until he was 99 years old. When he got the circumcision, then the name changed. 99 years, he had this name. Hu Seichel Anelam Mikal Rayon. This indicates that Abraham was a person whose name indicates who he was. By us, it's not so demonstrable. If a person's name was Joe or Sam or Reuven or Shimon or whatever, it's not. But Avram showed who the person is. Like sometimes they call people, lefty or red or something. I don't know if they do it anymore. In Avram, this is a level which is Seichel Anelam Mikol Rayon. Av means father, Ram means very high. In Kabbalah, Av is talking about Chachma. Chachma is pure awareness, without understanding, above understanding. Sometimes it's called faith. You're aware that something, that God exists, but you don't know what it is. A lot of things come from this level of Chachma, like conscience, for instance. Where does it come from? Where? Of course, people like Freud and everything will say that there's nothing above understanding. Everything is just, except for maybe there's things that are below understanding. But it's not so. That's not true. So, Av, like for instance, a child's connection to his parents, this is above understanding. This is something very good. This is very, very, it's so good that we can't understand it. Connection to our parents. So, Avram was an unusual person. He was a genius in godliness. This is Seichel Anelam Mikol Rayon, super religious philosopher, greatest that ever existed. Avram. You have any questions, any doubts that God exists? You go to Avram, and he can explain it to you. He can dispel all of your problems, or at least you'll see there is an answer. That your question is not. That was Avram. But God didn't want him to be so high. He wanted this greatness to be not just kept for himself. He wanted it to be revealed. That it should come down. He wanted Abraham to come down from this level of chachma, which Abraham realized the greatness of God. That God is what's called chacham, wise, if you want to call it wise. But no sort of wisdom that we have ever known or seen or can even imagine. That's what Abram was at. And God didn't want it to stay that way. He wanted it to be Yerida Mimidrega Lamidrega, to come down from level to level, ad soap to the end. Excuse me. The purpose is, why did God want Abraham to come down from his greatness? In other words, to advertise his greatness all over. Liod Giloi, that it should be revealed, but Bria Yetzir Nasiya, that God's greatness should be revealed, not just in the upper worlds where it is, and that Abraham can go up to get it. That's where Abraham was. But God wanted his greatness to be revealed in all of the worlds. Now, here's a very basic thing, that the world depends on man. God depends on man. That's why God set up the world. Makes no sense. I mean, man is just created by God constantly, so man is really nothing on his own. But God set it up that God is influenced by what man does. So Abraham, by means of bringing godliness into the world, telling people that there is a God, that God exists, that God will take care of your livelihood if you believe in him, and etc. Excuse me. He affected all the upper worlds as well, the world of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. So he brought godliness to be more accessible to man. That's what's called the upper heaven, the lower heaven, the pleasures, all the pleasures of this world. That people could receive revealed pleasure of God. Okay, all the religions in the world are based on pleasure. Pleasure. This world is a big fake out. You want to go to heaven. Heaven, you get infinite pleasure. Infinite pleasure. You get all your pleasure in this world, then that's it. You used up your credit card, and then you go to hell. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't really, I mean, it does work that way, but that's not the name of the game. That's not why God created the world. That's not why God created the world. God created the world in order that we should feel the pleasure of serving God in this world. It's a different type of a pleasure. We've talked about this 1,000 times. It's like the difference, the pleasure between being a successful thief and stealing from people and robbing, or to be an honest person. A successful thief, if he's successful, he gets a lot of money. He gets a lot of money, he gets attention. He can fool everybody. He trampled on a lot of people in order to get there. But what does he care? He's high, he's great. The problem is he's lacking integrity, he's lacking humanness. He's not human. But what does he care? He's rich. The person who is honest, it could be that he's poor, but at least he's a human being. At least he didn't sell his soul, so to speak. So the pleasure of not selling your soul, of being able to stand firm and not caring about any pleasures of this world or the world to come, that itself is a pleasure. We're talking about right here in the world. It's a certain pleasure that a person gets from being honest. It's not like a kick, a hit. Like in this world, you take a drug or something, you get a big, right? Maybe taking drugs is the example. You take a drug and you get a big hit of pleasure of something like that immediately, and then it goes away and you feel misery. So you take another, because it's false. But the pleasure of being honest, the pleasure of love, loving your children, loving your fellow man, it's a totally different type of a pleasure. But nevertheless, that's a true pleasure. And that's what God wanted Abraham to do. Abraham, as he was, got pleasure from leaving the world, to be very, very high, to understand high ideas. They say a story about Aristotle. According to Maimonides, Aristotle reached the highest levels of understanding that a human being can reach. That's what he says. There's a story that Aristotle was the teacher of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great came back from some sort of a foray, he won some sort of a battle. And in the distance he saw there was his teacher sitting by a river thinking. So he said, because he was the first person I saw, he sent his big general over there and tell him that whatever he wants, I'll give to him. He wants a country, he wants $1 billion, whatever he wants, I'll give. Wants 1 million servants, whatever he wants, I'll give it to him. So the servant ran over. He told Aristotle, pointed over there. Aristotle sees his Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great waves to him. He comes back. The general comes back. He said, did you offer him whatever he wants? Yes. He understood the offer. He says, anything you want, I'll give you. Anything you want, a country, you want $1 billion, $1 million, you want a slave, whatever you want, I'll give to you. And he said, you know what I want? I want you to leave me alone. Let me think. The pleasure that he had from thinking high ideas was greater. That was like Abraham, the Havdil. Abraham thought about holy things, about godliness. So God said, take that pleasure and somehow or other bring it into the world that it'll be accessible to everybody. That pleasure, you don't care anything about this world, not about the next world, not about just about the truth. That's the whole idea of chesed idgale b'pume the ima. That's what it says, that chesed, love, is revealed in the through the vehicle of ima. Ima is like bina. Bina is a level which is below wisdom. Liod giloi hashpa bebechinas iskashus, to be revealed, v'hu yoshev petach oil, that Abraham said in the opening of the tent. So we see, for instance, there's a man and a woman. They get married, right? So the seed comes from the man. So he's the instigator. But the building of the child comes from the woman. The same thing with godliness. Pure godliness is just like a little dot. That's like the first letter of God's name, the Yud. But where is it revealed? It has to come down into the letter Hey, the first Hey. That's called Ima. That's called mother. That's what God wanted to do. Lech lecha, Abraham, go down from your greatness and start revealing yourself in the world. This revelation is by means of tzimtzum behelam, but it has to be concealed. Bechinas choshech of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is already Abraham says the aspect of love. Yitzchak is the aspect of power, fear. The erev yiboker, yom echad. Kedei, in order to be bechinas yesh, so that there'll be a physical world. To draw down the oneness of God, that it should be the hayesh, the physical world, should be surrendered to it. Right? Like the conductor, when the conductor comes up on the stage and he taps his, before that everybody was warming up, they were doing, the bassoon was doing whatever, and the cello, it was doing the whole, the range of the highest note and the lowest note, the fastest of this. The conductor goes like this, all of a sudden everybody is quiet and they start playing the music. That's called bittul. Bittul means that you do what you're supposed to do. You fit in. Bittul. And that's what God wanted from Abraham, that the whole world would realize that it's good to be honest. It's good to be loving. It's good to have a family. It's good to be helpful, right? That Abraham would show that there's God in the world and that God created the world, that everyone should work to fix the world up. That's called bittul, right? Before Abraham came along, there was like the orchestra before the conductor stands up. Sheyebechin is yesh, that the world should exist, like the orchestra. It's good that there's so many different instruments, but they should all be playing the same music. That's what Abraham came to tell the world. My friends, everyone is different from everybody else, but you're all creations of God. Let's work together. There's a blueprint to what I say, sheet music. That's the Torah. And Abraham knew the whole Torah before it was given, but first he wanted to introduce the world to the author of the Torah, to God. Revelation of God. It has to be milah. In order to do this, there has to be the commandment of circumcision, to remove the concealment. Here, klippa, this is what's called klippa, the shells of nature. Klippat noga means nature. A chofef is which covers over the creator of nature. So the creation covers over the creator. Shalo yelo yanika. There shouldn't be any yanika. Let's take our example. Let's say that there's an orchestra and the whatever is it, the fifth violin locks the door to the conductor's office, so he can't get out. So he's in the room, he's knocking, and the violin says, "Everybody, play louder, warm up. It's going to be warm up soon. The conductor is going to come." And he's really fooling everybody. Everybody's playing, and the conductor, no, they can't hear the conductor. Like, "Hey, let me out of here." Same thing. God wants to be revealed in the world. The world is warming up. Everybody's doing whatever they want to, and God wants to be revealed in the world. Right? Somebody has to let him out. Who's letting him out? Abraham. Abraham comes and reveals that there's a creator, and there's a conductor, and there's a plan, and there's music, and everybody do it. You'll see this is going to be beautiful, wonderful. So that's the idea of the circumcision, opening up the door, removing the concealment so that God can be revealed in the world. That was through Abraham. And like I said, everything depends on what people do. That's what God set up the world. So Abraham was the first person to actually do this, to reveal in himself the essence of God in the world. That's because it's impossible to draw down godliness in the world unless it's measured out, etc. Reveal too much godliness in the world, like on Mount Sinai, it doesn't work. So Abraham had to do two things. First of all, he had to remove the foreskin, but also it had to be measured out so that people will be able to accept it, godliness. Therefore, it says after mitzvahs milah, ki av hamon goyim, that Abraham became the father of all mankind. What's all mankind got to do with this? It should be that Abraham did the circumcision, and that's it. He became the first Jew, and the Jews are going to go to heaven, and the rest of the world, too bad. Like Noah's Ark. You don't want to get in, so don't get in. God said, no, I don't want Abraham. I don't want you to be Noah, that you're going to lock yourself into the ark and save yourself and your family. I want you that you should save the whole world. The whole world has to know about the oneness of God. The main purpose of life is that this world is good. The main purpose of life is to realize how good man is, how good the world is. Most of these other religions, they're based on these two big lies, that man is essentially bad and this world is also bad. Man is doomed. You got to get out of this world and you go to heaven. Heaven is good. This world is bad. It's temptations, it's bad, it's terrible. This world. Judaism comes along and says, you're right, this world is temptations, yeah, 100%. And man certainly has propensity to go after them. But in essence, man is good and the world is good. Good. The world is very good, like it says in the creation of the world. And Abraham came to reveal this. So he had the whole thing of Abraham was not to make something new, so to speak. It was just to reveal. That's the idea of the circumcision. It's just revealing something that's there. Therefore, Abraham became the father of all nations. At first glance, it's not understood. What is the thing of all the nations got to do with Abraham? Abraham was the founder of a new religion. So that's the true religion. All the other religions are, right? Too bad. You missed the boat. No. The whole essence of Judaism is that the whole world should realize the Creator, not to do the rituals of our rituals and everybody's going to become Jews and more Jews. No. The Jews are the teachers. The whole world are the pupils. The Jews are the conductor. The whole world is the orchestra. The world is a very good place. People are essentially very good. Therefore, Abraham just had to reveal how good they are. Ella shenase koach habirur. Abraham just had the ability to make things clear by means of this revelation that he got when he got circumcised. It says, to what are the righteous Jews similar in front of God? They are like a small light in front of a big torch. They are included in surrender to a big torch. If you take a little candle and you put it next to a big torch, so the candle joins to the big torch, right? Flames join together. So that's the idea. Because everybody, the whole world is essentially good, and human beings are essentially good, as Abraham came to reveal a big sort of a good, which that's godliness, and that will evoke the good from everybody. That's Abraham's job, to save the whole world. It says, when the Jews don't do what they're supposed to, it says that godliness goes into exile. Kilo golo, the reason that the Jewish people went into exile is only, 1 minute. Okay, let's do like this. There you go. Ella Kadeh, only in order Shiatosef or Yidvosef Aleim Gerim, that there should be converts. Jewish people were exiled among the non-Jews in order that they should make converts to Judaism. Is that so? It's not so. Judaism does not encourage conversion to Judaism. It certainly makes no efforts to make, evangelistic, whatever it is, Judaism. There's no such thing. Judaism does not encourage people to become Jews. In a way, it discourages them. If there's a person that wants to become a convert, so it's the job of the rabbi to discourage that person and say, listen, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. This is not a joke. You become a Jew, you'll get a nice looking good Jewish girl. Okay, that's going to be worthwhile for you. But you should know that if you become a Jew, and if you light a light on purpose on Shabbos, then the punishment is death. Okay, nowadays there's no death punishment, but it makes God very unhappy. Very unhappy. If you eat a piece of not kosher food, or if you eat a little pickle on Yom Kippur, now you're a non-Jew. You can eat as many pickles as you want to every day of the year if you want to. There's nothing wrong, right? You can light lights the whole time, the day and night. You get no punishment. What's a punishment for lighting a light? But if you become a Jew, it's all going to be different. And the convert has to say, I know it's going to be different, and I'm looking forward to suffer for the truth, if that's what I have to do. Basically, that's what. So Jews we don't want. What does it mean that the Jews were exiled in order to add converts? It says the converts are talking about the sparks of holiness from nature, klipat noga, which are in all food and all drink, kosher food, kosher, etc. This elevates them to be included in holiness because of the revelation of God's presence. By means of this, they are negated and included, like we said before, a little spark of a flame inside of every single Jew and inside of every single person in the world and inside of every detail of the world. When used according to what God wants, that unifies the spark with the source. And that's the whole idea of this whole Torah portion, Lech Lecha. So, I mean, it's pretty hard to believe, but that's what it is. This is faith. One person was entrusted with so much power. And power to do what? To do what? To convince everyone that they're basically good and to do what God wants, what their creator wants. Say, well, that's pretty easy. Okay, what's the reward you get? Doing the truth. Okay, don't call me, we'll call you. But you're going to get the truth. Who wants the truth? What are you talking about? The truth? I want money. I mean, this truth thing, it's going to help my bank account. It's going to help my truth. It says, yeah, we believe that, that you do what God wants and God will take care of you. It says, once again, I see all these religious people. God did not take care of them. The Jews have been suffering since the beginning. Abraham suffered. Right? This whole Torah portion is talking basically about how Abraham suffered. God took him from all these tests, crazy tests that made Abraham suffer right and left. Right? Where's the godliness over here? It says, don't worry about it. You have to believe. Oh, now two things. I have to believe, and I have to also want the truth and not what's in the physical world. He says, no, you can want what's in the physical world, but you have to do it in the way that's true. I don't know. That's the whole story of Abraham. Abraham had to come into the world and make people realize that there is truth and make people interested in it. That's what it means that God spoke to Avram. Avram, come down, Abraham. The ideas that you realize are true, no one else realizes is true. The things that you're interested in, pure godliness, no one else is interested in. Come down into the world and get people interested in the truth. Avram, Yored, that Abraham should come down, umishtal shel, like a chain of coming down and to be revealed more and more, kadeliot tikun, to fix up and to refine the world and humanity, especially. Avram, because until Avram, there was what's called the breaking of the vessels. There was the generation of the flood, right? Abraham was born like what? 300 years after the flood, something like that. 300 years after the flood, around. So there was the generation of the flood, the world was just recovering from this terrible flood. And from Abraham began what's called the world of being fixed up. Abraham came along to fix up the world. Lech lecha. Yotzim Shem Ma, there came what's called the name Ma of God. We talked about these different names of God, Ban and Ma and Sag. These are numerical values. Mem Hey is 45. And it's a different way of spelling God's name. God's name is 4 letters, Yud, and then Hey, and Vav, and then Hey. Right? If you add them all together, Yud and Hey and Vav, it comes out to 26. 26. But if you fill up the letters phonetically, like for instance, Yud is Yud, Vav, Daled. So if you spell Yud and add a Vav, Vav is 6 and Daled is 4. So if you spell Yud, Vav, Daled, then all those 3 letters add up to 20. So already raised the numerical value called the gematria of the word Yud Kei Vav Kei, of God's name, from 26, you've added a Vav Dalet to the Yud, it comes out to be 36. And so it is with all the other letters. There's different ways of filling them up. What do we care about this thing, filling up letters? These letters are different aspects of God, and they refer to different levels of reality. Reality. Now, I'm just telling you what's written in the books. Don't think I really understand this, and that I'm a godly person, and that I'm a mystic or something like that. I'm definitely not. And no, I think most 99.99% of the people, maybe all of them, that talk about this, they also are not. Not all of them. I mean, there's genuine people like the Baba Sali and things like that. But generally speaking, there's very smart people. There's very intelligent people. I guess maybe there's some Kabbalists also. Could be genuine people. You have to look at their personalities, what they do in their private life, if they really believe in God, if they really do the commandments. That tells you what a person is a genuine, really, they say is connected to what he's talking about, or he just intellectually understands things. That's called the name of Memhe, a mataken, that fixes up the world. This is one aspect of God which comes down to fix up the world. Avraham is also sometimes, I don't think it says over here, that's Aver Ma. Aver, a limb of Ma. Avraham, with the name filled up. A limb of Ma. Hamatakan, this comes to fix up the world. What do you mean fix up the world? To let the world know that there's God, and God creates you, and that God has laws, and God has a plan why you're here, a reason why you're in. God will help you, and God loves you. God will provide for you, but He just wants you to connect yourself to Him and do what He wants and say what He wants. But there has to be a tremendous descent from the Avram. That's what's called Yesod Abba. That's what's called an aspect of what's called God's wisdom, God's Chachma, until it comes to the Eretz, which is Malchut, the lowest level. Asher Areka, the land that I show you. So that's what Avram, God said to Abraham, Lech lecha me'artzecha, me'mo'aretecha me'beit avicha, ela Eretz, to the land that I show you. In other words, Abraham, go down from your greatness. Get into the world. Perish ereh v'agaleh, I will reveal you, your essence. Now, Abraham, you're tremendously high. Go down into the world, and you'll see you won't lose your greatness at all. In fact, it'll even increase. You'll have to apply it to all sorts of interesting cases, interesting challenges that will reveal even a higher level of your soul. In other words, you, Abraham, will become revealed when you make the circumcision. Your name will become Avraham, Av Hamon Goyim. And like I said before, this is Aver, a limb of Ma, of this aspect of Ma that comes to fix up the world. Okay, before this, that Abraham came down from his tremendously high level. He was from Avram to be Avraham. I'm sorry, Lefizet. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. According to this week's Torah portion is talking about descent, coming down. God is telling Abraham to come down from your greatness into the world. Reveal yourself in the world. But there's also what God's name, God added the letter Hey. And the letter Hey, that's the lowest level of God. But there's also another way of saying it. The letter Hey is the first letter Hey of God's name. Well, Bezor, in the Zohar, it says, Gabi Avad Avad Halevi Hu. It says the service of the Levites is. And it says over there, the Kohanim, they're the highest. And the Levites, they're lower. In the Zohar, it says that the Levites, they receive from the Kohanim, from the priests, the Levites. So it says, but the service of the Levites is Hu, the level of Hu. Now, Hu is third person. This is talking about God, how He is away from us, concealed from us, higher than we can possibly imagine. In the Zohar, it says, the service of the Levi, which the Levi is a lower level, how Chachma comes down, right? The Kohanim come down. The Levi, the service of the Levi reaches the level of Hu. Hu, this is the inside level of what's called Keter, Atika. Shehidgalut Atik hu bebina, that the revelation of Atik, an essence of God, if you want to call it the crown of God, is revealed in a lower level. Abraham was the level of Abraham, he was the level of Avram. Avram was the level of Chachma. And everything, God was telling him to go down into the world, go down. But there's another, in the Zohar, it says that God was telling Abraham to go up. How could you go higher than Chachma? It says, well, there's a level of Keter. And Keter is revealed in the next lower level. Ubebina davka, v'lo b'chachma, not in chachma. Ki chachma is called Eden. Chachma is what's called, there's Gan Eden, Garden of Eden. Chachma is called Eden. And there's no revelation of Atik, of God's essence there. Atik is the source of the pleasures, and the pleasures are above Chachma. In Chachma, there is revealed pleasures. That's like faith, like that I was talking about before, the pleasure of being honest, the pleasure of being this. But Chachma itself, this is just a little point. This pleasure has not yet really been revealed, but only by means of what's called Bina. Bina is the letter Hey, that's wide. Nekuda behechala, that's what's called the point inside of the chamber. Inside of the chamber. Okay, what are we talking about over here? Let me try to explain this as much as I can understand it. One minute. Nekeva sovev tesovev gever shemakabelet ha'ora datika. Okay, it's like this. God creates a world. Why does God create the world? According to Judaism, why does God create the world? Because God gets pleasure from the world. We're created in the image of God. What we do reflects what God does. Doesn't make any sense, but it makes more sense than just saying that God is amorphous. God is just, like the Hindus and these people, God exists, but he doesn't care really about the world. He's just like, that's also, that's also a valid, that's something like what Avraham was before God gave him the circumcision, Avram. Avram revealed how great God is, how infinite God is, how infinitely real God is, in a way that nobody else could appreciate. He saw the truth in a way nobody else could know. He was just up there. Avram. And of course, that's a life of great sort of pleasure. Like I said, the story about Aristotle. And he just got tremendous pleasures from the upper, unchanging unity and reality of God. So God said to Abraham, come down into the world. Stop all this, person receiving your own pleasures and stuff like that. Come down and reveal this to the rest of the world. That's a tremendous descent. But in the Zohar, it says, Lech Lecha, that God was telling Abraham to leave where he is and go higher. The first opinion, Lech Lecha, means that God told Abraham to go down, lower. The second one says that God said, Abraham, where you are is very good, but there's something much better. Leave where you are, and you're going to get something higher. So which is it? Is it coming down or going up? Which one? So the Rebbe says, well, the Zohar sort of explains it. In Chachma, pleasure is revealed in a very small way. Where is pleasure really revealed? In the source of pleasure. And the source of pleasure is only revealed in lower levels. We talked about this before. We talked about it yesterday. Let's give an example in Chassidut. The sun shines, and when it hits the earth, it gets tremendously hot. You go into the Sahara Desert, it's like, 130 degrees, something like that, Fahrenheit. Tremendously hot. But if you get closer, you get on a rocket ship, and you get closer to the sun, so the closer you get, the colder it gets. in outer space, they have to wear these thermal, whatever it is, because it's, who knows, 50 degrees below zero. I don't know, 100 degrees. Tremendous. Why is that? It should be the closer you get to the sun, the warmer it gets. If it's hot in this world, it sure should be hot when you get, 100 miles up, 500 miles up, 1,000 miles up. It should be hotter and higher, but it's not. It's colder and colder. Why is that? Why is that? Because the source is revealed in the end. The source is revealed in the lowest. So when the sunlight hits the ground, then it sort of reflects back and warms something up, and that stops it, and warmth is revealed. The same thing is with the pleasure of God. That's what he wants to say. The pleasure of God is revealed in the upper worlds, but it's God himself doesn't get pleasure in the upper worlds. The real pleasure of God is in this physical world. In other words, the lower that God gets closer to this world, the more intense is the pleasure of God present. It's just that we can't accept it. People only after they die can accept it because we have no idea what it means going to heaven, right? A little bit of an idea to forget yourself totally and just think about God all the time. What does that mean? So it says, that's what it says, is known that because when a level comes down, in the lower it comes down, it has to come, in order to be pushed down lower, it has to come from a source which is higher. So the ability to come down into the world in some ways is higher than the level which is above it. Maybe I can give another example. A professor that's great, a genius, but he can't talk to anybody. Nobody understands him. For him to take his wisdom and to limit it and bring it down into the world, that takes a totally different talent. And in some ways, that's a bigger genius than just being a genius that nobody can understand. Okay, so that's what it says, that God, so to speak, contracted his oneness in order to be revealed in the world. And he did this through Abraham. But the ability for God to contract, so to speak, his oneness, this comes from a higher source. So that which God told Abraham to go down, so Abraham was really being, I say, the subject to a higher level of godliness than he was in his present state. So how is it that coming down really is higher? So it says, I'll give you an example. Let's just do this. And it says that King Solomon knew how to say 3,000 parables. What's so great about King Solomon? He was just a very, a big imagination. No. That King Solomon had he was the wisest man that ever lived. And he had the ability to bring his wisdom down 3,000 levels. So he could take what he understood and bring it down to people who were a little bit lower than him. Oh, now we understand. The people that were lower than the first people were saying, okay, maybe they understood, but we didn't understand. What are you talking about? Okay, I'll give you another example, and then another example, and lower, until even the most simple people could understand. What does it mean, 3,000 levels? It says, like a person who is tremendously wise, even though he knows something himself, but sometimes he can't explain it to other people until shekodem ad shekodem shehu masbir, before he starts to explain to simple people, he has to attach his mind powerfully and to get settled down. How can he explain to someone who's lower than him? A big genius in this, by the way, was Einstein. Einstein, to the degree that even Walt Disney made a movie out of it. I had the book once, it was from my father, of Einstein explaining the theory of relativity in simple terms. That a person is on a dock and the train is moving and he doesn't know who's moving. Is the dock moving? Is he moving? He gave different examples of the theory of relativity and how it works, but in a very simple way. Like I said, that Walt Disney made a movie for children about the Einstein's theory of relativity because he explained these deep ideas in a very brought it down in a simple way. Okay, but Einstein was not talking about God. Einstein was just talking about basic principles in reality that could be explained in a different way. But King Solomon had the ability to bring godliness, which no one saw, and make it applicable to every detail of the world. Therefore, it's like a wise person that he's talking to his pupils and they don't understand, so we can bring it down into a parable. So that he can find that wisdom even in the most simple things. The Mishlei, the book of Mishlei, Proverbs is also like this. The book of Proverbs, that's the wisdom of King Solomon. In order for a person to be a big genius, that's amazing. For a person to bring his genius down into the simple levels, then you have to have a bigger genius, that he can put his wisdom down into the lowest things. Only King Solomon, he had the ability, and his tremendous understanding, had an ability to take a deep idea and bring it down 3,000 levels, madrigos, each one a little bit lower than the previous one. Even in these low examples, he could find and to demonstrate his wisdom in the most simple things. Therefore, when he had to bring this down to levels and levels, that it required a tremendous deep thinking. It has to come. So therefore, this has to bring deep ideas down low. This is a new special talent. And this new special talent is even higher than the original wisdom itself. To bring this wisdom down, as Yochaliot, then there can be revelation of understanding. But from Chachma, which Chachma, that's the original idea itself, Ein Yochal, you can't come down below. Bechinas Bina, Rak Shorish Bina, you have to come from the source of Bina and revelation. This comes from a level which is above Chachma, which is called Atik. And Al Yadei, by means of this chain coming down, in other words, you get a shot of a power from above, Chachma, come down, then it can be revealed. Okay, but in order to be this level of Bina, which we said Bina is the second level of God's name, letter of God's name. In other words, not just knowing, having faith that God exists, that's Chachma, but understanding a little bit about how God is infinite, and how God comes into the world. That's Chassidut Chabad, that's what we're trying to learn here. Chabad, the Chabad Chassidut, is talking about these three aspects, Chachma, Bina, and Dat. Chachma is the original idea, that God exists, God is everything, God creates everything. Right? You understand that? I don't know. If you say it, I mean, maybe it's true. I don't know. How is this applicable to me? So, that's Bina. Bina is going to explain to you how this is applicable to you in your day-to-day life. Day-to-day life. Now you understand? It says, yeah, I understand it, but, I got to go. I have to cheat somebody. I have to do something. He says, no, you have to bring it down to make it real. This is talking about you. It doesn't talk to me. So I have to bring more examples so that not only do I get the idea, and not only do you understand the implications of that idea, but also I can embody that idea. That's dot. This is by means of a higher level, which is higher. All this ability to bring these things down, that comes from a level which is higher. That's the idea of the Rebbes. The Rebbes of Chabad are not just wise people, genius people, godly people. These are special people like Moses, that they had the ability to bring down this specialness and this godliness and this wisdom, to bring it down into the world. That's a special talent, which is even above Chachma. It's even above faith in God. That's what's called the level of Atik, the point on the Yud. And by mid, there's this that comes down into Chachma. That's what the level of Abraham was. Like it's explained in the book Pardes, that Yud has in it 3 points in it. And you know what? I think we're going to do this tomorrow. Tomorrow, because this has to be explained a little bit. This has to be explained. Okay, but just in a short way. Therefore, this descent that God told Abraham to come down, this really, the ability to come down, this is really a tremendous elevation. Suddenly, Abraham, by making the decision, I'm going to come into the world, a whole new door of godliness came down to it, a tremendous elevation. There's drawn down the light of Keter. Therefore, it says that Abraham was able to go in his journeys from the south, that's love, into Beit El, which is Malchut, and from above to below, and also from below to above, from the letter God that appeared to him until God stopped. Abraham built 3 altars. One was to God that appeared to him, and then he built just an altar to God. Says that's God which is above any form, any form, that. So Abraham was able, by coming down into the world and explaining to people and being an example in the difficulties of the world, of what it means to really, what the implications of serving God are, by means of him coming down, as he got a tremendous elevation, an elevation to a level which is higher than what he was in the beginning. That's Judaism. That's Chabad. Telling us that we, by coming into the world, then we can reach awareness of God, which was higher than we had before. But first of all, we have to be high. So Abraham started off with wisdom. He was tremendously wise. Same thing with us. We have to learn Hasidut. We have to learn the ideas of Torah. We have to learn the ideas of what God is. We have to understand. Then after that, you have to go down. You have to come into others, help other people. That's why it says that in Judaism, there's a big thing of yeshivas. You go to a yeshiva, you sit there for years, and after you've acquired a certain degree of wisdom, then you can come into the world. And coming into the world, that's a tremendous descent. But the idea of coming down, it says, reveals a tremendous elevation, a level which is higher than anything you've had before. And this was begun by Abraham, starting off with tremendous wisdom, after that coming down, and after that a tremendous elevation. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's do the Yom Yom, the Devar Malchut. 1 second.